So this is the 16 to 55mm f2.8 that Fuji produce. It's the professional mid-range zoom that they do. It's got a constant aperture of f2.8 all the way out through the zoom range, which means it's very, very good in low light, but it is lacking a couple of features. We're going to delve into those in this video, and also the features that it does have, which make it a very useful choice in many, many situations. We're going to find out the question, is it worth buying, or is it worth sticking to the kit lens that you might already have with the camera? The first thing to note is that while a standard 24 to 70 from something like Canon and Nikon has a range of 24 to 70, obviously, this is the equivalent of 24 to 82.5. That means you do get that extra little bit of reach in it, which can be useful for getting in and getting some detail shots from further away. And it does also make it just about possible to use as a portrait lens, although obviously the idea with these is that you would buy it in tandem with the 50 to 140, which will then give you much better compression. A big part of the appeal of this lens for Fuji shooters is the same appeal as you get with a lot of the primes, which is that you do get this manual aperture ring that controls the aperture settings just like it used to on an old film camera. That's certainly something that attracted me to the system, and as I mentioned the other day in the X100F video, which I'll link on the screen now, that was something that really appealed about that camera as well. I like to be able to look down and get a visual reference for the settings of the camera without having to go through menus or without having to look through the EVF or anything like that. Another absolutely professional feature on here, which is very welcome to see, is the weather sealing. And remember, that's not just for the wet and the rain, but it's also incredibly useful for dust as well. It's something which is incredibly practical for many, many situations for amateurs and professionals alike. Now, when it comes to the optical image stabilization, however, which is something that you get on the kit lens, which either comes with the camera or you can buy it for a few £100s, it's missing from the 16 to 55. Now, I don't exactly know why they've done that. It won't be a problem if you're shooting a camera like the XH1, because of course that does have the image stabilization built into the body. But if you're running with one of the X Pro series or one of the XT series cameras, then you won't get image stabilization in the 16 to 55. And if you're making the decision between getting this and the 18 to 55 and you're shooting video, for example, then that really might be a deal breaker for you. Now, some people do get upset about funny things when it comes to lenses. One of them seems to be zoom lenses that extend like that when you use them. It's not something that bothers me particularly, but if this is something that upsets you, well, there's not a lot you can do about it, frankly, because more or less all of the lenses, apart from the 50 to 140, actually do that. The thing to look out for is whether or not they do something called focus breathing, and that is when you've got it sort of at a, I don't know, halfway point or something like that, if you turn it upside down, does it then sort of extend by itself? Because if you're dangling off something to take a shot, then you might not get it. Overall, this is an incredibly sharp lens from all the way at 2.8 all the way to f16, although there was a little bit of a drop off just when you get to that f16 point. It is a remarkable lens, as all of the Fujinon lenses are, and with the linear motor it's incredibly fast to focus, and with the weather sealing it makes it perfect for almost all shooting conditions. The only thing about it, in my opinion, is the lack of optical image stabilization, and if you do need a stabilized image, the only thing that you can do is shoot with the 18 to 55 or with the 18 to 135 lenses currently. For some reason they missed it out of this, although bizarrely they put it in the wide angle 10 to 24, and you can't imagine why they've done that at all, although perhaps they were aiming for the videographer's market. Now, the big thing about this though is the big thing about it, and it is actually the size and the weight of it. People complain about that with the mirrorless systems because the idea is it's supposed to be a more compact system, and well, it doesn't become very compact when you look at a lens that size. And if you compare it to the kit lens, which will probably come with the camera that you get, this is the 18 to 55, so it's basically the same zoom range, and you can see that it is almost twice the size. It's almost exactly twice the weight too. The kit lens comes in at 310 grams. This one is a whopping 677. So that means that you are going to have bigger shoulders if you want to carry this thing around all day. Particularly, of course, if you want to pair it with its ultimate pair, which is the 50 to 140, which is an even bigger lens, and we'll be reviewing that on the channel soon. So ultimately we're left with the question then of, is this lens worth it? Who's it aimed primarily at? And do I recommend that you go and buy one? Well, if you were to go and buy this lens, and it cost about £1,000, you would get arguably one of Fuji's sharpest and best made lenses. It's got the constant aperture all the way throughout it, which means that you wouldn't even potentially need to swap it out for primes when the weather got darker. But the 18 to 55 is still at 2.8 at the wider end of the zoom, and it only goes into f4, unlike most of the competitors which go to 5.6, which means it is better in low light than most of the competition. The kit lens is half the price, it's half the weight, and it's half the size, and it does 90% of what you need it to do. So to that end, I would say that there are a few people that do need to use this lens, and they are primarily the enthusiast market and the professional market, who absolutely need to get the very best quality that they can from their equipment. For everybody else, you will be also just as happy with the standard kit lens. So if you've got deep pockets or you're using this professionally, I would say that this is a lens you'll be extremely happy with. But there are other alternatives in the market. The only thing you won't be able to do with either the 18 to 55 or the 16 to 55 is get those super telephoto shots. So you will need to look elsewhere if you want to zoom in and get close-ups of things, or if you're a portrait, wildlife photographer and that sort of thing. Now, I'd like to know what you're using, so please let me know in the comments below which of the zooms did you go for, or are you somebody that shoots exclusively with prime lenses? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you appreciated this content, please subscribe below, like, comment, share, and all that good stuff. And that tells the Google bots that there is content worth sharing on this channel, and it helps us grow and share more things with you. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Ciao.